Hey folks, LaTonya here. I'm so excited. The registration for Coaching Below the Surface is now open. So you could get more information at changecoaches.io. But just a few things with this program that I'm so excited about. This is going to go so much more beyond DEI. And it's all about coaching and in certain environments, coaching, creating mutual safety. It's ICF approved. It's SHRM approved. You'll get to meet with a cohort of leaders that are like-minded that will stretch you in new ways. So visit our landing page, join our wait list, and there will be a 10% discount for anyone that registers by May 15th. We'll see you there, folks. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Leading Below the Surface podcast. I'm LaTonya Wilkins, award-winning author and executive coach, and I'm so excited for today's guest. So let me tell you a little bit about this guest. So I met this guest in my first job out of business school, and we were in a leadership program together. I don't think I'll name the company right now because I just don't really feel like going into that. But we were in a leadership development program together. We had a lot of fun together, and in this program, we traveled a lot together. And so we recently reconnected not too long ago when I was seeing the type of work that she was doing, and that was in wellness. And so today I have Megan Dittman here, and we're going to talk about a summer of wellness. So we're coming up on the summer, folks. And so I know there's been a lot going on, and this episode, hopefully it helps us kind of get grounded and have a really good summer, a summer of taking care of ourselves, not a summer of toxic positivity, but a summer of acceptance, a summer of expansion, a summer of community. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Megan, what else would you add around your introduction?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for bringing me on to your podcast and for reconnecting with me, LaTonya. It's you're right. We did have so much fun together, and now we're both doing, we've got some overlap in our work, but different focuses. And congratulations on all your success. And yeah, well-being has been a passion of mine forever, and now I'm just so grateful that I've figured out how to combine well-being and leadership into the work that I do. So I'm passionate about well-being and developing talent, and I've figured out how to bring these two things together.
So let's jump right into this. So I'd love to hear from your perspective. I think everybody listening knows kind of intuitively the answer to this in their own way. But why do you think well-being is so important right now? And what kind of trends are you seeing in the workplace?
Well, first, let me define what well-being is, because through my work, I've realized that people just don't know how to define it. So first of all, holistic well-being is the healthy intersection of mind, body, and spirit. All three facets are equally important. And what's really interesting, and the academic studies have showed it, is that they're highly interconnected, meaning when you focus on body, it impacts mind and spirit. When you focus on spirit, it impacts mind and body. So, let's just get that definition squared away up front. It's so important right now because we are literally having a national crisis of mind, body, and spirit, or of well-being. So if we just look at body, we have more chronically ill and obese people in our country than ever recorded in history. If we look at mind, we have the highest youth suicide rates ever on record. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from a mental health illness, and 40 million Americans are suffering from anxiety. And if we look at spirit, according to our National Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, we're experiencing the largest loneliness epidemic on record, which will absolutely wreak havoc on society and other aspects of well-being. So this is why it's so important. If we look specifically at the workplace, well-being is also suffering at the highest records ever. The number one thing impacting workplace well-being is stress. And we know that stress is the number one driver of chronic illness. And this is concerning because, it's not diet. It's not lack of physical activity that's causing burnout or illness. It's stress. And so stress is what's causing this term that we use in the workplace called burnout. And, there's been a lot of studies around, well, what's driving burnout? So if you look at, I love McKinsey's Health Institute. They churn out a lot of really great research. McKinsey has identified what the top drivers of burnout are. And it is, number one, toxic workplace behavior. Number two, role ambiguity, meaning I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in my job. Number three, role clarity. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between those two terms. Number four, interpersonal conflict, which is not getting along with people at work, bad team dynamics. And then number five, work pressure, which is really all about too much work for someone to achieve in a day, in a week, in a month, in a quarter, just unreasonable work expectations. So these are the drivers of the stress that then turns into what we coin as burnout. And burnout is a clinical term. It is when your body has chronic levels of stress, meaning your body is in constant fight, flight, or freeze mode. It is constantly in overdrive, higher blood pressure, um, higher heart rate, decreased oxygen levels. All these things are happening when we're stressed. Our bodies are flooded with these hormones, cortisol, that puts us into this state, which then ultimately leads to chronic stress. So, we've got this crisis in the workplace. We've got this crisis in our country. And that's why there is no important topic right now than holistic well-being and why is this happening and how do we solve for it?
It's interesting because you mentioned a lot there. And, you mentioned a little bit about the biology. You mentioned like some really eye-opening statistics around well-being. So I know you work a lot with workplaces but before we get to that, whose responsibility is this that you see? Because like you're talking about just obesity and you're talking about teen suicide. And, obviously this isn't a workplace issue. So like, how do you let's first get to ourselves and like, how do we navigate this as a society? Like whose responsibility is it? Because it can't just be on the individual, because when you look at other countries around the world, their well-being is way better than the United States.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, look, a lot of it's cultural, and I'm so glad you brought this up. It's not just an individual's responsibility. It really is a societal responsibility. And that's what we're lacking here. I mean, when you look at the US, we're such an individualized culture. The individual is prioritized over the collective. And so if you look at societies where the collective is more important than the individual, typically you see higher levels of well-being. And so when we talk about responsibility, I do think there's a huge responsibility on our government. Government's in place to provide protection, to provide safety, right? And so focusing on how can we protect and have safety if well-being is at, the worst records in history? That leads me to the corporation. The corporations, as we know, play a huge leadership role in, furthering the good of society. Hopefully the products they produce have some sort of, societal benefit. We know that Gen Z doesn't even want to go work for companies unless they can clearly connect what the company's doing to purpose, right? So companies need to understand that, how they treat their employees, how they foster the well-being of their own workforce has huge ripple effects outside of their actual company performance, but in society in general. So it's leadership, whether it's company leaders, it's government leaders, it's spiritual leaders. There's a responsibility collectively on the collective well-being.
I love that, like how you brought in societal, religious leaders and others, because like I do think, and I think it's because like the world that I'm in, but I do think a lot of us focus on corporations when it's like, yeah, it's like, even I'm even thinking about civic leaders and like religious leaders like I'm just thinking about second places, right, where people go, and like bringing some of that in, especially when it comes to health and wealth and that kind of stuff, because it just seems like that's really the last thing that we're thinking about in these spaces today. Does that make sense? It's really interesting because it's like we're waiting for the government, or we're waiting for schools, or we're waiting for, corporations to do this when there's other areas, right?
Well, yeah, we have to stop waiting. I mean, it's like we need to start to take action. I mean, Gandhi said it best, be the change you wish to see in the world. So I'm sure we could all, sit there and be like, yeah, we wish to see this change. Well, be the change, right? Be it. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to push this change, trying to help companies see the connection between well being and performance.
So how did you get into this space and like what inspired it?
I've been passionate about well-being as long as I've been an adult. I mean, we'll just kind of start with adulthood. So even in my 20s, I felt a little bit like a rarity, in that, I was very aware of wanting to use organic products on my skin, wanting to eat foods that were whole and clean and didn't have chemicals. So even when no one else was really talking about it, I knew that there were so many chemicals in our foods and our products, and that these things are absorbed into our bodies. And so I've done my best from my earliest days to try and live, call it a clean lifestyle. I started in corporate America alongside you because I wanted to help people. I mean, we were in HR. I know it sounds cliche, but I went into HR because I wanted to help people. What ended up happening is that um, I worked in cultures where it wasn't celebrated or prioritized well-being. It wasn't celebrated or prioritized. And so ultimately what happened was a number of things. I started to get further and further away from helping people. I became a reorganization expert. I became a layoff expert. I became a cost-cutting expert. My purpose was to help people. And so I ultimately burned out when I go back and sort of like look at my life in corporate America, because I got so far away from what my purpose was, which was to help people. And I love well-being. And so, like I said, I'm so grateful that I finally figured out how to combine the two passions of mine. And so I've gone back to helping people through talent development. I went into HR because I wanted to develop talent, but that's not what I ended up doing over my 20 years in HR. And then it was on my yoga journey. So I've been practicing yoga for 15 years, but when I became a certified instructor, when I was studying the yogic philosophy, which is what it is, it's a philosophy, it's a way of living, it's a system. There's an 8-limb path. The actual postures, it's very westernized, is just one small little piece of studying yoga. That's when I realized that, wow, these things that we're talking about in yoga have such strong ties to leadership abilities. And this is not what we're talking about in leadership training. There's so much opportunity to change the leadership conversation. And so that's sort of how my business was born, was through this realization I had in my yoga studies.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how you brought that into like your world, like the yoga, and you meshed that with HR. And it's also, folks, I'm going to make a joke about this because isn't it interesting how people think HR is actually helping people? It's not. It's not. Like you just said, you became a layoff queen or whatever. And like, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
It's
I
like,
think I don't know. I don't think all people think that, right? I think I've also learned a lot of people like don't see HR in such a positive light,
no, they
and that
don't.
makes sense.
That's what I'm saying. That's the
That
point.
makes sense,
Right,
right?
right.
Because,
Because it's not that.
I think all of us went into
Right,
HR for similar
right,
reasons,
right,
right? And
right,
then we like
right.
found out on the journey that it really wasn't what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, your interest is the company, not the people. And you have to do what the company says. And so it's like, I have one of my best friends and mentors, she's 70 and she's in her 70s, and she was at the place that we worked at, but she was always known as the HR leader that did care about people. But she did that on her own, and she almost got in trouble for it. And so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just
Well,
it's hard because that's really not what this is. And that so that was the we were talking about this before we started. And I'd
mhm.
love to get into this. I know I'm kind of going off script here, but
Okay.
so should part of HR's responsibility be wellness? Because you just said it's benefits, like it's a benefits thing over here, right? So whose responsibility is wellness in the workplace?
I've actually registered this statement. So I trademarked it. It's now registered. Well-being is not a benefit. Yeah, well-being is not a benefit. It's a leadership value. Why did I come up with this? I came up with that statement. Well-being is not a benefit. It's a leadership value, because currently well-being sits in the benefits department, which implies, hey, here's this nice to have. It's a benefit from working here. Like, not a must have, a nice to have. It's a benefit we offer. Take it or leave it. That's the wrong approach. It's the wrong approach. It puts it all on the employee. What companies need to realize is that well-being is a performance differentiator. It's a performance driver. We all take for granted our health and well-being until we don't have it. And as soon as we don't have it, we're not able to do anything. So when our well-being is not optimized, our performance suffers at home, at work, on every single level. So companies are foolish to think that if they are not investing in developing the skill of well-being in their workforce, they're foolish to think that that is a waste of money. That is absolutely the best way they could spend their money, because the benefits that they offer, like I'll just give an example, the Calm app. We offer the Calm app. We care about your mental health. Go meditate. Okay, first of all, the return on investment of those apps is negative. Why is that? Negative. So they're wasting money. They could use their money much better to hire people like myself or my partner or any other meditation expert to come in and teach mindfulness to their employees, because it takes teaching. You have to teach it. You have to practice with them. You have to answer their questions. It is hard to master. You can't just throw an app at somebody and expect them to go become a meditator. We know scientifically the benefits of meditation are just, there's so many that impact mind, body, and spirit and work performance. I mean, it is number one, increases EQ. What leader doesn't need better EQ? What leader doesn't need to be a better active listener? How do we help a leader become a better active listener? Do you know? Like, how do we do that? But meditation, you just become a better active listener because you're practicing focused attention. Focused attention. And that's what active listening is. Can you focus on what the other person is saying? Or are you thinking about how you want to respond? You have to rewire your brain through meditation and neuroplasticity to be able to do that without trying.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's just an example. So we need to flip the script in corporate America. Well-being is not a benefit. It's a trainable leadership skill. Period. End of story. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's the story I'm trying to get companies to understand. And I think it's going to happen because, like I said, we're literally in a national crisis, whether it's the public sector or the private sector, call it, the corporation sector crisis.
Yeah.
Well-being is at the core of that.
One of the things that you said just now, I mean, that you covered a lot of ground. It's like that Calm has a negative ROI, which is really interesting because, Calm is a great, I think, starting point. Like if you're very, very much a novice, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I recently stopped my Calm membership because I found that there were better videos on YouTube. And if I wanted a meditation for like a certain thing, like it was better on there because Calm is just,
It's a guided meditation.
It's kind of a corporation. Yeah, it feels like a corporation.
Well,
it doesn't feel like a real outlet.
I would just push back a little bit. I don't actually think that starting with an app is the right way to go. I think an app is a supplement after you know what you're doing. But so the reason that it has negative ROI is that people give up because the app isn't providing them the guidance they need to make it a habit. So I think the apps have a place after you've trained your people. And the apps, of course, are a guided meditation. We teach people how to meditate on their own without an app, which is ultimately the best form of meditation because you want to be at total stillness. If someone's talking to you, that is not total stillness. Your mind is at a level of activity. It's still active, listening, understanding. No. Real meditation is complete stillness, no thoughts. So you cannot have a guided meditation and get to no thoughts. So we teach how to do that yourself. So you could literally be sitting in an airport. You don't need your phone. You don't need anything. And you can go into a meditative state while you're waiting for your plane.
So what are some of the things that are challenging for leaders when they're on a wellness journey? And I think we were also talking about this a little earlier, like, sometimes I guess like when I'm thinking about it and I'm coaching leaders, I don't think people really know what wellness really is or like what's realistic for them. But what are some of your thoughts?
When we educate, we always start with what is holistic well-being, a healthy mind, body, and spirit. And then we break that down.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into the details of what's a healthy body. Like, are you eating nutritiously? Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Are you getting enough movement into your day, into your week? Right? So we define body, we define mental health, emotional awareness, mental, abilities, ability to think clearly, so we define the mental, and then we define spirit. Are you compassionate? Do you have connection? Are you grateful? Do you have a sense of purpose, meaning, and belonging? So we define all that. And that's eye-opening for people. They're usually like, oh my gosh, I literally only thought well-being or wellness was like physical. It's like, no, it is holistic. And all of those things that I said are all equally important.
But see, that's hard. That's hard because I think the physical is what people get fixated on because that's something that seems concrete to them. But we were talking about spirituality earlier, and how do you like the mind stuff? Like, how do you talk? Because it's like so. The mind in the United States, folks, a lot of it is very Western and very religious. And the rest is like burnout. What would you say to that? Because it's just, I think a lot of people have a hard time with the mind stuff.
Well, the mind is so important, but this is where, it gets a little gray. So it's like anything I'm talking about kind of like, can overlap into any of the three areas. So, mind, I mean, clearly, call it our emotional health. Like I talked about, 42 million
Emotional
Americans,
health.
which is about 12% of our population, suffers from anxiety. Why are they suffering from anxiety? So now we go to spirit. Well, it could be because we know we have a loneliness epidemic. People feel less connected than they've ever felt before. Less connected, right? Why do they feel not well connected? Well, we know, I mean, this is a whole nother podcast where we could just talk about social media. What is driving the highest childhood suicide rates we have ever seen on record? Lack of connection. Why? Because they're like this. They're like this now in front of their phones, right? Connecting with the images they're seeing on social media, and their brains aren't developed yet. Their brains aren't developed to take in the information they're seeing on social media, and they aren't out playing anymore. They aren't playing in the playgrounds. They aren't talking to their friends. They are looking at their phones. Do you see the connection? It's like no connection, spirit, high rates of suicide, depression, anxiety, right? It's all connected.
And what would you say if someone told you, because this is something that comes up a lot in the sessions that the work that we have with people is, okay, I got a coach and I got a therapist that's going to fix it. How would you respond to that?
Okay.
Because that's what everybody does, right?
Yeah, coaches and therapists are totally different, right? And there's a place for both. There's a place for both.
Yeah.
Here's how I describe the difference between coaches and therapists. Therapists look at the past.
Mhm.
Therapists go back because
Right.
there is important work to be done to talk about. A lot of people haven't talked about their past. When you talk about what you've been through and an emotion, you work it out of your body. And that's so important. So there's absolutely a place for speaking about your past. It was real. What happened to you? What therapists aren't trained in per se, and most of them don't focus on, is the future. And that's where coaches come in. So coaches are like, okay, you worked through your past, you worked out the emotions, you spoke about it, you made it, you brought it to the surface again. And now what are we doing going forward in a positive way? So coaches are trained to be goal oriented. What are we going to do now to move forward? What is it that you want your life to look like? What are the positive things you want to bring into your life? Whereas therapists are like, let's talk about what happened in your childhood with your father. Let's talk about what that horrible thing was that boss did to you. Okay, and there's a place for that. And that's important because we tend to, and this is part of our mental health, we tend to bury our emotions, and they live in the body and they cause physical illness. We have to get the emotions felt, recognized, authenticated, and out of the body. This is a real thing. Have to get them out. And that's what therapists help us do. Coaches come in. What are we going to do now going forward that's going to make your life positive? Let me be your accountability partner. Let me ask you questions in a positive framework. Let me help you get committed to positive change. Forward thinking coaches, past thinking therapists.
But what would you say to someone that has had a therapist and a coach for years, like what would you say their next step is? And I know this isn't clear. There's not a framework or like a path like that's concrete, but because I think a lot of like I was on a podcast. I had a podcast guest a little while ago, and we talked about healing to lead, and that's just the first step, right?
Healing to lead. Yeah. We're always healing. I think healing is a lifelong journey. I think there's probably a place, if we can all afford it, for therapists and coaches our entire life. You know, I mean, life is hard and we need support systems. And so therapists, coaches, friends, spiritual leaders, community are support systems. So, I would never, if we all had like unlimited funds, I would advocate for a therapist and a coach all the time and a good group of friends.
Yeah, friends are. I mean, I think for me, it's been pretty amazing to just have these deeper friendships. And I think it's because I'm getting to an age where I can cultivate that. Like before, I was more focused on career and other things, and now it's like that is like kind of what I look for, or is that friendship depth. So we're here in the summer. We're getting into the summer. What are some of the things that you think people could be doing to create a summer of well-being?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is like, just I want them to have fun.
Ooh, have fun. I love it. Let's say more about
Yeah,
that. Yes.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't tell someone specifically what you should go do. I would never do that. So the first thing I'd say is, how are you going to have fun? What does fun look like for you? Because guaranteed, well, there could be a few things that you think are fun, but ultimately they might be fun in the moment and then lead you to, like, let's just say drinking too much. You might think that's fun. I wouldn't recommend that because then the next day you might not feel good. So I'm talking about fun things where like the effect has a positive long-term effect, right? So, um, maybe you think something fun would be, going for a walk outside in nature every day. Maybe you think something fun is sitting on your neighbor's porch and, talking about whatever for 30 minutes. Maybe you think something fun is, going to a sporting event with your family. Um, so it's whatever brings you joy in the moment that has long-lasting positive effects. And I would say anything in that realm of mind, body, spirit.
Right.
So physical health, mental health, spiritual health. What moves you? And then you just gotta like fit it in because you had said before, what do I hear from corporate people? The number one thing I hear from corporate people is I don't have time.
Right. Right. Right.
And I would push back and be like, you know what? You absolutely have time because I'm going to push back and say, you know what you do? You spend too much time in meetings that you don't need to be in. You spend too much time looking at social media that you don't need to be looking at. You spend too much time working on things that aren't value add to the bottom line or revenue driving. So you have time. You just need to reprioritize your time. And the number one thing you should be making time for is your own well being. So, it starts with identifying what are the areas I need to optimize in that mind, body, spirit model, and then pick one or two small little things that you can commit to and just do it because it will have huge ripple effects across your entire well being. Have to prioritize it and stop saying, I don't have time. You don't have time to take care of yourself. What good are you to anyone if you don't take care of yourself? So have fun while you do it.
And I love that mind, body, spirit, like the pillars. Like I recently just got my first life coach. I can't believe it. I've had a lot of coaches, but I've never had a real life coach because I mean, a lot of my friends are coaches. So I'm like feeling like I get coached all the time, but I wanted a dedicated coach. And that's one of the things that we did. It's like, she's got all these different pillars and I've been mapping my life to those pillars. And it's just really given me such a nice roadmap for myself as I move through the summer and like balancing, because I think that the body stuff I'm really good at. Like I'm very fit. I do, like that stuff. It's like clockwork, right? But it's like the mind. The mind stuff has just really been evolving, and it's been nice to again have a roadmap and like a compass for that through the life coaching.
I'd love to just share one example since you bring up mind because people might just naturally gravitate towards, oh, this would be like a body thing. but it's summertime. And call it most of the US, like Arizona aside, because in the summer in Arizona, you probably never want to go outside. But let's just say in most places, summer provides this opportunity to get outside. And we know from thousands of academic studies that being in nature is a huge source of increasing your well-being. And I don't mean go out in nature and listen to a podcast. And I know we're doing a podcast. I don't mean go out.
Except mine.
And, yeah. Okay, except yours. But like, don't go out in nature and listen to a podcast. Don't go out in nature and bring your phone and listen to music. Don't go on a walk with someone and talk with them. Go out in nature by yourself, walk, use all 5 senses. What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? What do you touch? Maybe even what do you taste? And I'll use taste because like when I go to the ocean, I taste the saltiness in the air. Go do that. Give yourself the gift of time alone in nature and watch how it enhances your overall well-being, your mental state and your spiritual state. You will feel a connection with all of the beautiful things that we have in nature that we're like too busy running through life to pay attention to. It is that connection that we're striving for. And so I say connection and we were talking about like connection with other people, but it's really like connection with everything. Nature, animals, the trees, the ocean. Just get out there and give yourself that gift by yourself, no distractions, and watch what it does to you. It's amazing.
Well, this is a good conversation, Megan. I'll definitely be having you on again. But like, since we have to end this, unfortunately, what are how can people find you? What are some of the things that you're up to and your programs?
Well, so the name of my company is Front Goose Wellbeing. The reason for that is that geese fly in a V formation, and the front goose is creating wind resistance for the other geese behind them. And that goose gets tired eventually and falls back and another goose takes over. So there's this, shared leadership component with how the geese fly together, and they fly longer distances by flying in that way. So they're taking care of each other. They're an effective team. And so, we focus on leadership development. We focus on practices of holistic well-being that tie to the leadership competencies of response, intention, service, and evolution. And we've got a great 3.5-day leadership program that we've created for companies, for executives, call it the progressive mind that wants to take their leadership to the next level. So this is beyond, your basics of leadership. And we teach meditation and mindfulness to corporations. And then we do coaching, whether it's individual or group coaching, focused on holistic well-being and, your performance as a leader. So, you can find us at Front Goose Wellbeing. Happy to chat with anyone who's interested in our programs. They're life-changing. And I can tell you that, the individuals that go through our programs are, they're positively changed forever. It's transformational.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave all those links in the show notes, folks. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and watching on YouTube. And we'll see you next time.